And welcome back on A-Ball with Erik Goes. We're now joined by one of the Lumber Kings outfielders, Peyton Burdick, one of the 2019 members of the Miami Marlins draft class. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I guess let's go over what has been a whirlwind, right, for you, the beginning of a professional career. It's been a rather effective start for the Clinton Lumber Kings' newer faces. So what has been the couple of months like from being a college student to a professional athlete and now a Clinton Lumber King?
It's been a shock, honestly. It's you can never really expect like what's going to happen because you never know what's going to happen. So just going from being a college athlete to a pro athlete, it's been a good experience. It's been all over the road, a lot of traveling, and honestly, I've been dreaming of this since I was little, so I can't really complain.
When do you think that moment it occurred to you that you wanted to go into the professional ranks? Because we'll talk about it too during the interview, but you come from an athletic family, and when did it hit your mind right away that that's what I want to do? Is it something that maybe you could point to your dad having done that want to follow in those footsteps, so to speak?
Yeah, it's ever since I was little, I have an older brother, and he and I playing in the backyard. It's always been our dream. My dad kind of set that standard of to do your best and be the best person you can be and pushed us to be professionals at everything we did. And baseball ended up working out for me, so I'm honestly blessed.
And I would say so because we're talking with Peyton Burdick, who was taken in the third round out of Wright State by the Miami Marlins. At Wright State, when you found out that obviously you were being scouted for a professional career because you're taking that early on, it was their coaches and staff that were able to help with that transition? Because that's got to be kind of daunting, right, when you find out that you're leaving the college campus and that you're not going to be an amateur athlete anymore.
Right. We're surrounded by a bunch of alumni that ended up getting the opportunity to play professional baseball, so they kind of talk to you about it. And our coaches have a couple of them have played professionally, so they kind of like make the environment after professional baseball so you kind of know what you're getting into. And they make the transition a lot easier because they're always there to mentor you. And if you ever need anything, like our coach already came up and saw us when we played Kane County because a pitcher, Ryan Weiss, pitched against us, and he ended up coming up to see both of us. So it's kind of nice having them there.
What did they tell you when you were getting scouted? Was there anything that maybe stuck with you that maybe helped you get prepared for that professional career that has really just begun for you just a couple of months now?
They kind of just told me, like I kind of told them I didn't want to hear anything. Like I just want to focus on the moment. And the best advice that they told me is just be you. Like don't try to do anything different. Don't change. Just do you, and everything will work out the way you want it to. So, just being easy and being simple and just being who I am every day.
When we were talking with you out in Beloit, you were mentioning, I think it was the legs and the arms coming together for you as you were developing, I guess, and becoming a professional athlete. So out of high school, what were some of the growing pains that you had that maybe you had gotten through in the college ranks and led to you being selected in the third round?
I'd say, honestly, the development that our program has, they put in a system and they follow the plan every day, and our strength and conditioning staff at Wright State is top-notch. You walk in, you don't see the big, flashy weight room that you see at like all these Power 5 schools, but you see a strength coach that knows what he's doing and just hungry guys you're surrounded by, and they just push you to be better every day. And just working out, I worked out a lot, started eating right, eating clean, knowing what to eat. And then the training that we did on the field, Coach Tyler Rico does a lot of the base running stuff, and he's been offered some pro jobs, and it just hasn't worked out for him. So he's still at Wright State, and he kind of taught me how to run because like everybody knows how to run, but he taught us like the technique and stuff. And I ended up trimming down some of the time on my 60s and got a little faster and figured out my body a little more and developed. And I put on probably like 25 pounds of muscle since I got out of high school. And I mean, I can't even like believe it, and it's still shocking.
What is that like, too, with finding out how to eat? Because I'm still, I guess, trying to do that as a broadcaster. What did you find out that you had to cut out, and what it changed like? I imagine you feel a lot different, too, just based on the diet that they always say you are what you eat, right?
Right,
and so,
right.
What was that epiphany like for you?
It changed my energy, honestly, and then just day-to-day. So, like, just eating grilled food and trying to eat as much as I can. So I got on, like, a 4,500, 5,000 calorie a day diet, and basically, it got to the point where I just eat food, and just eat anything that I could, and because I knew I'd work it off because I was working out so much. But now it's more eating clean and keeping your body in good shape.
You mentioned those the help of the alumni too. What were some of the names that were able to guide you to that path in the major or with the professional ranks?
Yeah, so Sean Murphy's a big one. Mitch Roman. You got Jesse Schultens, Robbie Sexton, Danny Sexton. just to name a few off the top of my head. And then guys that got picked up last year that I was real tight with, like Gabe Snyder, Matt Morrow, and who else? We got Gabe Snyder, Matt Morrow, and then we got Caleb Sampin. And they all come back around, and it's like they just talk to you like you're still their best friend, and like nothing's ever changed. And they kind of give you a heads up of what to expect, and just tell you like about their experience, and it kind of gets your mind ready.
Well, what has Wright State been like lately? Because just as a broadcaster in this league, we've seen a lot of guys come out of Wright State lately. Gabe Snyder was in this league last season. You mentioned Weiss out in Kane County, and of course yourself. So it seems like a program that is certainly on the rise as of late. Maybe speaking to the talent of that coaching staff. Was that some of a vibe that you had picked up out there, that this was a program on the rise, and maybe a reason for selecting that school when you're coming out of high school?
Coming out of high school is Coach Mercer kind of really talked to me about how like I was undersized, and how really no other program really wanted me as much as Wright State, and they really saw something in me. And I don't want to give away all Wright State's like hidden stuff that they look for, but they like to recruit athletes over there, and then work on baseball from that, because it's easier for athletes to adapt than somebody coming in that's not really athletic. And I don't want to spill too many other recruiting tactics, but
don't worry, we're not investigative journalists here, so we will keep the prying questions, I suppose, to a minimum. But that's from your home state, right out in Ohio. Is that close to your hometown? Did that factor into the decision as well, that you could be home to some or close to some home cooking?
Oh yeah, it was nice. I was only an hour away from home, and I had my aunt right there in Oakwood, which was 10-15 minutes away. So anytime I needed a nice little home-cooked meal, or if we had like a family gathering, we'd always go up to Dayton, because it's easier for me just to go 15 minutes and they'd all come up. And I really appreciate that, because getting time with family, like when you're away for a while, is pretty nice. It's pretty refreshing, gets your minds off things.
And we were in Dayton earlier this season. Did you ever go out to Fifth Third Park, the home of the single A affiliate for the Cincinnati Reds? Always selling out too. Have you ever been to a game there?
Yeah, well, I went to one, actually. I went to one, and we played there a couple times. My buddy Caleb Sampin plays for the BG Hot Rod, so we went and supported him and got to watch him, and it was pretty cool to see it from the stands.
Yeah, Mike Jacobs, he said it was, I think, like a AAA stadium when we were there. It was pretty fun to be around. Whenever you're around, I think it was 9,000 fans. It's hard to not have a good time. And now that you're in the single A ranks, but let's go over the moment when you had been drafted. You knew it was coming. Who were you with, and what kind of moment was that like for not just you, the friends, the family, everyone involved?
So it was kind of crazy, because you never know how the draft's going to work out. But my family, I just wanted to keep it small. I didn't want to do anything crazy. Just be with the ones that I love and support me every day. And they ended up coming up to my apartment in Dayton, and we sat there and watched it. And I kind of knew before the draft like where I was going, because I had some representation that was helping me out. And it was just real nice knowing like before the draft started like where I was kind of going, and we got ready for the moment, and then it happened, and it was just crazy, like just all you work for your whole life to get to that next level, because you set goals, and reaching one of those goals is real exciting.
Yeah, the professional. You talked about your brother, right? Playing, I imagine, some wiffle ball games in the backyard, and now some reality can be attached to those too, because you're in the professional ranks. Now, we talked about this when we were with you out in Beloit, but your dad has some athletic genes as well. You made a joke that maybe it was the lack of speed that ended an NFL career for him, but what kind of career did he have at the NFL ranks? Was it the Seattle Seahawks that you were talking about he had played with for a season, and what kind of where did that lead to, I guess, in your athletic development too from an early age?
So he's with the Seattle Seahawks for a year. He got picked up as a free agent, and you kind of get different stories from different people. He'll tell you one thing, my mom would tell you another, my grandparents will tell you one thing, but the joke is he was too slow and got cut, so we just make fun of him still a little bit for it, but he's funny about it, and he'll clown us a little bit, like make fun of us, and just say like things like he'll call me short because I got my mom's height. I'm 6 foot and he's 6'5", and it's just like, come on now, I can't help that.
Yeah, you can't get taller. Sorry, I can only wear heels so many times, Dad. But he was telling you when we were out in Beloit that playing a lot of sports was something that he wanted
Right.
you and your brother to do. And you mentioned that being a real help is just an athlete, getting a lot of experience in different sports, sort of that versatility, which it seems like you don't see that much in really a whole lot of sports these days, that you're told to focus on one sport, and that's kind of the end of it. If you're in baseball, you're in travel ball until the end of time, until maybe you go into the professional ranks. But you were a versatile athlete. So where does that fit into the type of skills we see from a Peyton Burdick on a given day, whether it's the arm or the intensity, the mental mindset that maybe carries over from football?
Right. So back in high school, my dad, he made us play 3 sports. And he said if we didn't play 3 sports, then we'd have to get a job, pay for like car insurance, gas, and like all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like an incentive to play 3 sports. But playing 3 sports was the best thing I could have ever done growing up. Just learning like basketball really taught me how to move and like kept me in shape pretty well. And then football taught me the mentality. And going from sport to sport, it can be exhausting. But when you're that little, you can recover like crazy. So it's just fun. And like I can't think if I didn't play 3 sports, like what would happen. And if I could talk to any little kid nowadays, I'd tell them to go play any sport they could and experience like all of them, because you never know which one's going to be for you.
Well, it's always great when we have a new player that comes in and you're kind of figuring them out, right? Because as a broadcaster, you got to tell everyone the scouting report on a certain guy. Well, I think very early on we told everyone when we give the defensive alignment, when we say Peyton Burdick in left, he's no pie thrower out in left field because he's got a cannon for an arm. And you mentioned that was something that you'd done early on in your baseball, that you were a pitcher, right? So when was that decision made that I'm going to be going into the hitting side of things as opposed to the pitching, even though you still use that arm, of course?
Right. I just think in high school it ended up working out that I really started to get my bat going, and I could always hit a little bit, and I kind of figured out how to hit a little bit more in high school, and it just made more sense to play in the field because I was a utility guy going into college, and then I ended up sticking in the outfield because when you get to college, you got more guys, and I think that's really what changed my career, is just focusing on hitting after a while. But pitching for sure helped me learn how to throw.
Does that help, too, in just the mindset of a pitcher, that you kind of have an understanding of what maybe someone would want to do in a certain situation, or at least understanding that battle that goes on all the time for you? Is, you've been a pitcher before, so you kind of understand what the end goal is, so to speak, and you've been part of scouting reports before. Is that a help at all, too, when you were going more into the offensive side of things, that you kind of had some inside knowledge?
A little bit. It kind of gets you thinking the game a little more when you're able to pitch and hit spots and stuff. But in high school, I would just try to rear back and throw it as hard as I could because I didn't know any better, and usually didn't work out for me too well.
Well, I wanted to ask you this because we were talking, I think it was Bubba Hollins a couple of weeks ago when we had him on the podcast, and he's an infielder, so he's involved in a lot more shifts than I guess you guys in the outfield. Right. But of course, the outfield is ever moving, and it seems over the last couple of years, I think we even talked about this with Frank Moore on the last week's episode, that every level that you see in minor league baseball, whether it's the major leagues or all the way down here to A-ball, it seems like a new guy comes up and there's a whole migration pattern that takes place on the field. Is that hard to just keep in the scouting report of knowing exactly where to be with all these guys, and how does that feel? And maybe not always standing in the same place in the outfield, the ever-moving defense that we now live in the baseball age.
Right. I think it's sometimes it can be confusing, like when you get too much information. But we talk a little bit before games about how we're going to attack hitters and stuff, and you kind of learn from the swing during the game too. Like the swing in the game will dictate a lot more because people are different on a day-to-day basis. But so really locking it in during the game will be more beneficial, I think, because you read the hitter's swing and the strength of the pitcher, if he's going to sink it, if he's going to throw more inside, or so.
Well, we're talking, too, with Peyton Burdick here for the Lumber Kings, one of their outfielders. And we should mention, too, one of the hottest teams right now in the Midwest League as we record this on July 13th. And we're not just talking about the temperature. It is also hot out here in Clinton. But, I mean, this team, this offense, after the first half had begun, you were here with the Lumber Kings. They dropped the first 3 games in Wisconsin. And since then, they've been one of the best teams in all of the Midwest League. They say hitting can be contagious at times. Has that been the case with this squad? Of course, you've factored into several of the rallies. Your fingerprints all over some of the success for the Lumber Kings as of late. Is that the kind of vibe we have with this Lumber Kings success as of late with the clubhouse? We always know a very loose group here in Clinton, but is that hitting contagious? Because it seems like a far different offensive unit than we had in the first half.
Right. I don't think it's always one person, but I do think hitting is contagious. I think I was kind of like a new spark to get some like energy in and just different kind of view of things, but outside of that, I just think the guys are starting to click. I mean, it's a long season, and guys go through rough patches, and you see it all the time. So I'm not going to say that I was the only reason why the offense took off, but I mean, we're professionals, so I mean, these guys know how to go out and compete and play, and it's just working out for them and everybody here. So
it's interesting because it's really the development. I mean, Connor Scotty's only 19 years old.
Right.
He's been here all season long, and you see early on in this season, it was very cold too, but a rather rough start for Connor, and then it starts to come along. You see the averages start to climb too. And what was some of the things that you noticed when you got here? I mean, you're coming really straight from college into full season baseball, and this is where they talk about pitchers starting to develop the changeup, or they maybe start to refine that slider a little bit more. Is that something that you've noticed from the college ranks into these ranks that you've had to adapt with? I know it's only been a few weeks for you here with the Lumber Kings, but it's always something that they always say it's one move made by the pitcher and then the hitter has to adapt to it.
Right.
Is that sort of the battle that's been taking place for your first couple of weeks here at the Midwest League?
Right, yeah, I think so, especially with the technology that they have. I mean, you'll see tendencies of teams, and you see like an area where you struggle and you really get exposed here because teams have that report and share it with, and other teams are able to access it. So it's like more teams will attack you kind of one way until you figure it out, and then they'll kind of adapt to that. So,
are you a big stats guy, a big video guy? Because right now, baseball, you can be suffocated by all the knowledge. If you want numbers, man, are they there for you? You can get them if you want. Mickey Mantle, I think, once said that he hated the numbers so much that when he went to All-Star games with Ted Williams that he'd go in a slump for a couple of weeks because Ted was really into the exact swing path and the hit trajectory, and Mickey would start thinking about it too much and go over for a couple of weeks. But where do you fall on the intake of knowledge because it's available, but are you someone that tries to maybe just keep things a little bit more simple, or what's the mindset, the approach to the game of baseball?
So I like a little bit of everything, so I kind of pick and pull from different things. I like to kind of keep it simple, like you said. Sometimes you can overthink baseball real easy, and sometimes you got to step back and remind yourself you're playing a little kid's game. Like, you can go out in your backyard and do this, and when things get a little tough for me, I like to just go play wiffle ball and relax and kind of get my mind off things. My strength coach at Wright State, actually, he has the blitz ball stuff, so the stuff with the crazy curveballs and all that stuff, and I'd have him just throw me pitches like for an hour, and it'd be fun. We'd start competing, and you forget all about it, and then you go out to the game later that night, and you're like, oh, this is pretty easy. So,
was there a moment when you're coming up, too, that you started to see the breaking balls a little bit different and notice that they were getting sharper, and it was something you'd have to contend with to adjust to, I guess?
Right. There's been – the pitchers up here for sure have more pitches. You see guys that'll spin a slider, and it's got like less depth but more side-to-side movement, and then you'll see a sharp breaker, and you got to kind of realize like the difference between the two, and then the change-up too. So
Yeah, we were talking with Tyler Mitchell not too long ago, so of course we know well about the changeup. We were finding out about grips and things like that, and I mean, this goes back to all the numbers that you want, spin rates and things like that on the pitching side of things. Are those numbers that the hitters get to look at a little bit, the higher spin rates, so maybe you look for fastballs high in the zone because they may be able to get away with it? Is that part of the scouting reports now here at the single A level?
Yeah, for sure. You can kind of tell, too, when a pitcher throws it by his arm slot if it's going to be like the spin rate and all that kind of stuff, and when you get in there after your first at bat, you really kind of know, and the guys talk in between, like when you're going on deck and in the dugout, so you get a lot of information during the game too. And
what has the coaching staff been like for you? Mike Jacobs, of course, a major leaguer. I think he had 100 home runs in his major league career and not too far removed from his playing career. Frank Moore, one of the longest tenured coaches in the Miami Marlins minor league system, his 11th season with the Marlins. Seems like a lot of knowledge. They also keep things pretty loose too, so is this a good group of guys to work with in that day-to-day grind that you see here at the full season level?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're always loose. They have great knowledge for all of us, and just being able to kind of pick their brain a little bit and hear what they have to say, it's like, oh, maybe then I don't have to try as hard and like all this kind of stuff. So it's a good staff, and I love the coaching staffs that I've had so far since I've been in pro ball.
Well, we're talking here with Peyton Burdick, and we'll let you go with this because you were not here for opening day, which is okay. It's not your fault, Peyton. But it meant we could not give you our questionnaire where we try to, have some things to talk about, guys, as we say during my 3-hour tap dance during the broadcast, where I have to, talk about these guys. And so I wanted to ask you, our toughest questions probably the entire interview, and that is, do you have a celebrity crush that we may be able to relay to the fans out there on any given broadcast?
You asked me this at Beloit, and
I've given you time now. It's
time,
been a couple of weeks, Peyton.
I still don't think I've come up with one, but there's a couple cute celebrities out there, I would say.
Okay, well, what about hobbies? Do you have anything that you do in the other than wiffle ball when you're trying to get your mind off the game and the grind? Is there something that you do to get away from baseball when you do have those rare off days?
So my dad owns a couple jet skis, so we like to take those out to the lake and kind of mess around on those, and then cornhole too. Cornhole is one of my favorite things to do. So.
Did you ever watch the? Didn't they bring them up on ESPN?
ESPN?
Yeah, they had championships.
Yeah.
It was so silly that I was really getting into that.
Yeah, so was I. I was like watching. I was like, "What is this doing on ESPN?" And then I was like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting."
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be. Am I writing a letter to ESPN for more cornhole coverage? Man, well, we're talking. Thanks so much with Peyton Burdick for stopping by.
Thank you very much.